Welcome to another edition of Interviews with El Vocero Hispano. Today, I will have the pleasure of speaking with Senator Winnie Brinks, a dedicated public servant representing Michigan's 29th District. Among her notable distinctions, she has been the first woman to ever serve as the Senate Majority Leader in Michigan, and Senator Brinks has been at the forefront of championing economic development, expanding civil rights, and advocating for policies that improve the lives of her constituents. With a special focus on bipartisanship and effective governance, she continues to make significant strides in addressing the pressing issues facing Michigan today. Welcome to our show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So first of all, again, thanks for your time. We know you're busy, so let's jump right into it. So I would like to start by talking a little bit about what has been considered historic, because on February 13th, a set of progressive laws has passed in what has been considered a historical step towards a more inclusive, safer, and prosperous Michigan. So, Senator Brinks, what impact do you anticipate that the repeal of the right to work law will have on Michigan's workforce and economy, especially considering its controversial history and the labor movement's response to its appeal?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're really proud of the body of work that we were able to get done in the Michigan legislature in the last year. And as you mentioned, many of those laws came into effect on February 13. So we were celebrating those last week. And one of the key things that we were able to do as Democrats when we gained the majority in the legislature was to repeal the so-called right to work law that the Republicans had passed about 10 years ago. And so what that really does is restore the ability of workers to have a larger voice in their workplace. It allows them to organize, to speak with one voice, to get better wages, and to have safer workplaces. And so we were really pleased to be able to restore those workers' rights. It's incredibly important. As you know right now, workers need to be able to have that voice and to have those rights at work so that they're safe, so that they can earn more, so that they can take care of their families.
Of course. Especially, I guess, nowadays where the labor market is especially constrained and under so much scrutiny.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, now talking about these same laws, let's jump now to another one that was very important, because even as of last week, we heard about the unfortunate incident that happened in Flint, where a father of a 2-year-old did not lock the gun in a proper way, and this kid unfortunately shot herself and is now fighting for her life. So regarding gun control measures, what steps do you believe Michigan can take to balance Second Amendment rights with the need for public safety, particularly in the light of recent developments?
Yeah, that was such a tragic story to hear about. And we were able to pass some gun violence prevention laws last year that went into effect on February 13. Yeah. And this terrible situation happened in Flint just the very next day. So that's the very first case where we were able to apply this law and where law enforcement could use that law to hold people accountable for not storing their guns in a responsible way. Hopefully we won't need to use this law. And
Ideally.
That people will, become aware of it and follow it so that we can prevent such tragic accidents in the future. But we passed a law requiring safe storage of weapons in any home where children are present. We also have passed laws to establish universal background checks for anyone who would like to purchase a weapon, and that will really help make sure we're keeping weapons out of the hands of dangerous people. We've also established emergency risk protection orders. So if you know someone is a danger to themselves or others and you've been calling the police or asking for help, you will now be able to utilize the court systems to help remove a weapon temporarily from a situation so that somebody doesn't use it on themselves or against others. So we really have increased the tools that are now available to law enforcement and to the community to ensure that people are safer when it comes to firearms in our community. So there's more work to be done on that. But this is unprecedented here in Michigan. In the past, the Republican-led majorities in the legislature refused to even have those conversations. So that was one of the reasons it was a priority for us. Moms, kids, teachers, parents, families are all safer when we have these kinds of statutes in place.
Of course. Thank you. Also, part of the laws that just went into effect, it's the LGBTQ rights expansion. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, again, 2 days ago, we heard of the case of Next Benedict down in Oklahoma and how she was brutally assaulted, harassed before she was assaulted and passed away, unfortunately. So in terms of these LGBTQ rights expansion, how do you foresee the recent legislative actions affecting Michigan's social and political landscape? And what challenges do you anticipate in ensuring the full implementation of enforcement of these new protections?
Yeah, this is an incredible need in our state, and we had been talking about this, again, like gun violence, for many, many years, for decades. And so it was an important priority for us to address immediately. And so what we did last year when we passed that law that just went into effect was to add protections for LGBTQ people when it comes to things like employment and housing and accessing public services. So now it is illegal to discriminate against people based on their LGBTQ status. And so we are hoping that Michigan, particularly in light of the horrific stories that you're hearing out of other states, as well as the policy direction that so many other states are going in cracking down on individual freedoms and making it more difficult for people to live as their true selves, and to not suffer for that, either in employment or in public. So we're really hoping that Michigan will be seen as a safe place for everybody, a place that you can work without fear of being fired for your sexual orientation or identity, and that you won't be discriminated against and certainly not assaulted because of your sexual identity or orientation. So it's just an incredibly important moment for us to be able to finally have those protections in place. And it's, again, another tool that law enforcement can use when people are discriminated against. The courts can use it. Employers and other places will be held accountable if they violate it. And so it just makes Michigan a safer, better place for everyone who lives here.
And you mentioned a safe place for those people, but even maybe as an example for other states to follow the same.
That's right. And you know, we also heard from the business community that we need to be a welcoming state so that they can attract people to our state. And as we try and grow our population and we have so many jobs that are good jobs that are unfilled, it's really important for us to remove those barriers to making our communities just better, safer places for people to live, to work, to play.
Thank you, Senator. Now, currently moving to financials. Tax season is here.
That's right.
With the recent tax relief measures and adjustments to pension income taxation, what do you see as the potential economic impact on Michigan residents, particularly those low-income workers and retirees that are struggling, and how do you plan to address any unintended consequences or disparities resulting from these changes? Yeah,
it was, again, really important for us at top of our list. One of those things that the previous Snyder administration and Republican legislature got rid of were this relief from taxes based on tax credits, like the earned income tax credit. That one in particular is really important for families who are working hard but still can't quite make ends meet. I worked in nonprofits and education and Godfrey Lee Public Schools and other organizations where I was constantly working with families who were just struggling with transportation, with childcare, with housing, and a number of healthcare. And all it takes is one of those bills at the end of the month to destabilize your budget. And if you have to choose to pay for medicine and then you can't quite pay your rent on time, it starts this whole downward spiral that can really put families' stability in jeopardy. And that means kids can't be successful at school, and people can't be successful at work, or they don't have a car. So the whole thing is very precarious for those low-income families and households, particularly with children. So the Earned Income Tax Credit will put a few $1,000s average back into those household budgets for about 700,000 Michigan families. Wow. So it's an incredible step up. It's a reward for that good hard work, and it will pay dividends in the lives of those children as they experience their childhoods in more stable households and grow up. We also, of course, as you mentioned, address the retirement tax. So we reduced taxes on retirement income, whether it's from pensions or from other kinds of retirement accounts. We know that it's tough to save enough to be able to retire comfortably and securely. It causes a lot of stress, and as costs have gone up, we are seeing people really struggle. So this is just another way that we can put a few more dollars back into those wallets and purses of those seniors in our community and make sure that their needs are met. So we're really pleased that those are starting to come into effect. So if people have questions or wonder if it applies to them, you can call 211 and they can send you information or give you information about specifics on those tax policies, or a referral to someone who can help you actually prepare your taxes if you're under a certain income level.
Awesome. Call 211. That's
211.
the number. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Awesome. And I guess it's just setting up for success people from all walks of life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you. Now, moving on to the next question. Governor Gretchen Whitmer has prioritized and put great emphasis on a green Michigan. Given the ongoing debates and controversy surrounding energy transition policies, what strategies do you believe are necessary to balance statewide renewable energy goals with local autonomy and community concerns? And how do you plan to address the diverging interests and perspectives with Michigan's diverse population?
Yeah, we worked really, really hard to get some of the best, most progressive energy policy passed this past year in the legislature. We worked very closely with Governor Whitmer to do everything that we can to move us in a direction where we are responsibly addressing the challenges that are coming from climate change and from global warming, and trying to make sure that our state is best prepared to deal with those things, and that we are shoring up ways to get our energy that are cleaner, that are healthier, and that are renewable, so that we are in a solid position, not just next year and the year after, but for the next few decades. And so for us to be able to set Michigan on a greener, cleaner path was incredibly important to us. We worked really hard to work with our energy providers and those folks that are doing the work now to make sure that we have affordable, reliable energy. Not always doing as well as we would like them to. We see a lot of outages, certainly in some parts of the state that we'd like to see improved. So we worked with them to address things like affordability and reliability and renewable sources, so that we can better serve the people of Michigan for a long time to come. So you'll see more on that. I know it's difficult to get everybody to agree to taking a new path, but we worked really hard with a wide variety of stakeholders to make sure that their voices were at the table, and we worked those thoughts into the legislation as much as we could. And at the end of the day, we were able to get some pretty aggressive policy changes accomplished by working together. And we're just really optimistic that this is a good direction for the state to go.
Awesome. Now moving to a little more international part. We have seen lately what's going on in Israel and Gaza. Now, Detroit being having a high population of Arab American communities, we have heard in the past week some even call out, and I quote, "We prefer to vote for Mickey Mouse than Joe Biden." That's the quote. Given the sensitivity of this situation in the Middle East and the reaction to the Arab American community in Michigan to policies related to Israel, how do you view the balance between the United States foreign relations and domestic electoral expectations, especially in a context where certain sectors of this population feel very marginalized by policies supporting Israel?
Certainly. This situation that we've seen unfolding, overseas with this conflict has just been tragic to watch. I think there's not a single person who has not been impacted or affected in some way by looking at the images that we've seen coming out of Israel and Gaza. And so, first of all, I just want to say my heart goes out to all that are impacted overseas. But of course, as you mentioned, we have a lot of folks who have strong connections to people either in Israel or in the region itself. And so there are very strong feelings about it. It can be really easy to feel helpless in a situation like this. So as a leader in our state government and in our legislature here, my focus has really been on helping people here talk to each other, helping address the policies that we can control about things like hate crimes or discrimination based on religion that we have seen are part of the conflict overseas. And so as a leader here, trying to serve our constituents well, that's where I have focused. I think the Biden administration is in a very difficult position. And I understand why some folks would like to make their views about the presidential election known by talking about this conflict overseas. I think at the end of the day, the support for Biden will be there in the state of Michigan despite this. And that as we look at, on the balance, what our choices are about who leads this country, Biden's in an incredibly strong position in terms of what he has brought to Michigan, in terms of economic support, in terms of supporting families and equality, and things like affirming individual rights, reproductive rights, LGBTQ rights, strengthening our economy. I feel confident that those are the things that at the end of the day will help get him reelected. And the contrast between him and Trump, which is what I believe the contest will come down to,
Yes.
is stark. We are talking about, Biden, who has been a picture of stability and not one of drama and chaos. And I think that's what we need in our country, right? And contrast that with chaos, corruption, criminal activity, a ban on Muslims is how he started his first presidency. So it's up to us, I think, at the end of the day, to really work together to make sure that Trump does not ever see a second presidency. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to support Biden and to encourage him to do his best when it comes to things that we disagree with him on. But to me, there is no question that the stability and the wisdom that a Biden administration will bring next year is the way that we need to go.
Now, you specifically mentioned right now some policies focused on those minorities that are maybe concerned with what's going on in Gaza and Israel. Can you give an example of those policies that you have supported for those minorities?
So when we talk about, the impact of national policies in Michigan, is that your question? Yes,
correct.
So I would say immediately one thing that comes to mind is the emphasis on protecting women's right to choose and to, determine their own future based on their own personal situation. We know that there are tragic circumstances sometimes that lead to pregnancies. Yes. There are much wanted pregnancies that experience, just really tragic diagnoses. And for folks in the Republican Party led by Trump to be talking about removing those choices that should be made really by families and their physicians about health care at the end of the day, I think is one really strong example where there is an absolutely clear difference between a Biden and a Trump. I think when it comes to the border and immigration, we've seen, Trump be absolutely intolerant of welcoming new people, of vilifying people, of talking about how people are criminals. And that's not the kind of world I want to live in or country I want to live in. And there's no question that, nobody's perfect on this policy, as it is one of those most difficult things that our nation has dealt with for decades. I think the whole stance of a Biden administration and the Democrats in general over the last couple of decades has been far more productive, far more welcoming, and understanding that people come to our country for the opportunities, like my parents came to access. And so, as a child of immigrants growing up here, I have a special place in my heart for the value that I think we have in our country because of the way we have welcomed people. For me, when I look at, a Biden administration versus a Trump administration, there is such a clear difference. And
stark difference.
It's just an incredibly important part of our community here in West Michigan. When I think about the refugee immigrant community from all parts of the world, really.
Yes.
You look at a place like Kentwood, for instance, is one of the most diverse school districts in the entire nation. And when we look at places like Wyoming and Kentwood and Ottawa County and other parts of West Michigan, where we have just a growing and vibrant and diverse Latino population, that's something I want my kids and their kids to be able to enjoy and grow up in a rich environment that makes us all a better community.
Of course.
And so that's the kind of perspective that I am looking for in the next president.
Yes. Now, people are saying and people see Democrats are divided currently across the country, with obviously not supporting this genocide in Gaza. Now, obviously, the president's handling of this situation, you were mentioning earlier specifically, kind of push him to and support him in his decisions, but also push him to make better decisions. So how do you foresee this influencing voter turnout and party dynamics in state's political landscape moving forward?
Yeah, it's an important conversation that we're going to continue to have throughout this year. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that as we continue through the campaign and in the days that lead up to the election, that it will be top of mind for many people. I would also say that when I look at the balance of things, there is still such strong support based on Biden's really strong record on so many things that I am confident that he will come out ahead. And it's important for us to remember that at the end of the day, if we're given a choice again, which is what it certainly looks like it will be, and it will come down to a Trump versus Biden, there is no question in my mind who will be the better person for the job. And so I'm confident that voters will see that. And, again, as a state leader, I am really focused on what we can do here to make sure that we're taking care of our constituents here. And that is always my first focus.
Now, because this Monday, a group of younger Democrats called voters to mark uncommitted. Mm-hmm. We heard about this. Now, what is your stance on the call for Democratic voters to mark uncommitted on their ballots as a form of protest against the government's support for Israeli actions in Gaza? And how do you perceive this strategy influencing the broader political discourse of the Democratic Party?
I certainly think people have every right to make their opinions known, and that's one of the ways that some of our voters are doing that. I'm always ready to listen to people. I am not uncommitted. My choice is clear, and I am thinking about the presidential election in a really holistic way. It doesn't mean that I agree with everything that's happening in Israel or in Gaza. I happen to believe that there are other ways that I can impact that change other than putting the presidential election at risk or using that as a tool. So not everybody agrees with me there, and I'm more than happy to hear their thoughts, but that's been my perspective. I will solidly support any Democrat on the ballot over Donald Trump,
Okay.
and I just happen to believe that it's going to be Biden. I'm certain that he is paying some more attention to the voices of folks here in Michigan. We've seen some efforts on the part of his policymakers and his advisors to be more responsive to that, and I would obviously urge him to continue with his teams to be more attentive to those voters who are saying they'd really like to have those conversations with him, and a lot of that's coming from here in Michigan.
Of course. Awesome. Well, now moving back a little bit back into the state politics, talking about the Drive Safe bill. We know this was a big part of your campaign, and I would like to ask, the Drive Safe bill represents not only a matter of road safety, but also a symbol of inclusion and empowerment for Michigan's vibrant immigrant communities.
Yeah.
Giving the Democratic majority in both the Senate and recently in the House of Representatives, many are wondering why the Licenses for All bill has not been passed yet, and if you could shed some light on the factors or the challenges that you currently face, right, that have hindered the progress of this bill despite the favorable political landscape for its advancement.
Sure. We've been working on this bill. I've personally been a bill sponsor and a supporter of this policy for many years. So it's something that I really want to see happen. And I come to this, from the perspective of being from West Michigan, and the things that I was just talking about with the community here, and as a child of immigrants, and as someone who's married to a Latino person, and whose life is so much better because of people who were able to come here, and so. Not everybody has that experience, right? And I think that we've seen legislators on both sides of the aisle from around the state that need to learn a little bit more about why this is important. And so we've been talking to them for years, right? In some cases, they've come and gone. Other cases, we have brand new people that we have to talk to, as we do every 2 years with the State House. So obviously, we are closer than we've ever been before because in general, Democrats are much more open to this policy than Republicans. However, we still don't have the votes to actually get it all the way across the line. So we continue to do that work. We continue to share our stories about a safer, more vibrant community, one that is not only about the stories of people who lack driver's licenses and can't get their kids to school or to a doctor's appointment or get back and forth to work safely without concerns for being pulled over or detained. Those stories are incredibly important, but we're also talking with people about people who are business owners, who need their employees to be able to show up to work, who are teachers and educators who understand the importance of having all of the families in our community have access to education. We're talking with public health professionals who understand that if people don't feel comfortable going to a physician because they're worried about driving to and from, that has an impact not just on those families, but on all of us. And so we continue to keep having those conversations and talk about how this is good for all of us to have healthier and more vibrant communities of people feeling safe and secure to do the things that they need to do. So we'll keep working on it. I will not stop as long as I have the ability to have an impact on this. But the fact of the matter is we just don't have the votes yet. So our work continues. I hope that people will join us in that. I think it's important to remember, Democrats are not a monolith. We agree on a lot of really important things, but we don't agree on 100% of everything 100% of the time. And so this is one of those things that's been a tough policy. And I guess the last thing I would say is in an environment where we have people like Trump, and we have other voices on the far right spewing hate, really speaking openly in racist ways, where we have people fear-mongering about, suggesting that every newcomer to the United States is a criminal. Those are incredibly destructive ideas. That fear-mongering and those scare tactics, I think, also have an impact on some leaders in our communities that might be a little bit hesitant to take that vote that they know is the right thing to do. So that's not helping us. So it's just incredibly important that we make sure that we are speaking up and helping people understand the value of this and speaking out against that hateful rhetoric.
Because I think we have all seen what those ideas have done to the world.
Yep.
In actuality and in the past.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So,
but it makes our job hard.
of course.
Right? It makes our job that much harder, and it makes it a challenge that
But the work is being done.
the
And
work
it's
is
still-
being
it's
done,
still
and
there.
my commitment is stronger than ever to continue that work and to see if we can get that done.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here with us today.
You are
We know
welcome.
you're probably busy handling all these issues of your constituents. We thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure, and as it always is, to come talk with you here at El Vocero.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
As we conclude our interview we thank Senator Winnie Brinks for sharing her insights and vision with us today. Her dedication to the people of Michigan and her efforts in the legislature are truly commendable. We also want to extend our gratitude to our viewers for joining us in this important conversation. Your engagement and interest are what make these discussions so valuable. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations in the future. And remember, make your voice be heard at the poll. Thank you.